All right, we're at the office, but we're about to take off and go meet Carrie Tennis with Pilgrim Mortgage.
Yes.
We're going to meet at Omega Homes.
Right, we're going to be meeting in a model home that she works with this builder a lot. And so we'll be talking about
the wealth gap.
The wealth gap, right.
Yeah.
Renting versus owning.
Right.
The benefits of buying a house.
Yeah, so let's go.
If this is your first time to our channel, be sure and hit the like and subscribe button. My name is Tara, this is Jeff, and along with David, we make up the Schellenberger team here in College Station. So if you're a first-time buyer, looking for a second home, or just wanting to move to this area, reach out to us, we'd love to help you. So remember, we've helped people just like you find the right home at the right time, right here. Okay, Carrie, I'm so excited to be talking with you again today.
Can't wait.
Very excited. So we have Carrie Tennis with us today. She's with Pilgrim Mortgage, and we are going to jump right into talking about renting versus owning and the benefits of owning your home. And she hits on a lot of really meaty parts of it. So let's just get started. We'll just jump right into talking about the wealth gap.
Yes, that pretty much sums it up to me in a sentence right there. Who doesn't want to be wealthy? So I think that for me, when I talk to people, and so many of them are saying we're renting now and we're afraid that we can't own a home. And there are just so many people out there like that. I love to talk to people. I think it's an education thing, about what that looks like, what the difference is, what it takes to get from renting to owning. Because for so many people, they feel like it's a huge step, and it may not be, really,
Right.
But what happens, the result of it, the wealth gap. And you guys, I'm a big data person. I love graphs and stuff, so forgive me here.
No, that's fantastic.
But I've got a graph, this is one of my favorite ones, and it just shows the homeowner net worth is almost 40 times greater for homeowners versus renters.
Yeah.
And you guys, that right there for homeowners, and this is straight from the Fed, our government puts this together. So homeowners, this is very current, right now have a net worth of $396,200.
That's it.
Renters, yes, that's the median, right? Renters, it's $10,400, okay? That's a gap.
That's a huge difference.
That's a gap right there. We could say, okay, homeowners are probably older, and they are. So as a whole, homeowners are 57 years old versus renters, and again, this is a median age, renters are 42. So, that right there means that they've earned money probably for a longer period of time, and they can own a home more easily, or they have more equity in their home. So there's that. It's not like a straight apples to apples, but I just think on the top level of it all, just looking at, that gap of almost $400,000 right there, that's a very compelling reason to at least figure out, can I own a home instead of rent?
Right. And I think this is probably an issue for a lot of people, that it just seems so overwhelming that you don't even know where to start. So really what we're going to be doing is walking through this process that you can do with Carrie, or if you're somewhere in another area with another lender. But we want to walk through the details so that it breaks it down and makes it more manageable and not feel so overwhelming, because I think people make assumptions about their debt, about their student loans, about their credit score, and we're going to walk through all of that.
So I think when you kind of step back and look at it, it's kind of one of my favorite sayings, in that everybody is making a mortgage payment. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you own the home and you're making that mortgage payment, or if essentially you're making your landlord's mortgage payment.
Even in an apartment. That person still has a mortgage, just for many more, multifamily dwelling. You're still contributing to that mortgage payment. You're paying somebody's mortgage.
You're paying somebody's mortgage. So let's just get straight through that. Right. Right there, absolutely, that you are paying somebody else's mortgage, but your landlord is getting the benefit of the equity.
Right.
I have a chart here to show you guys, like over time, and I think this one goes clear back as far as they started collecting this data. clear back into the 1960s. And again, this is from the government. It shows the price of homes over the decades. And it's, it's a classic line. It's straight up. Just another thing, that people are worried about, well, is this a good time to buy? Are prices high now? And what if they go lower? Everybody thinks about 2008, right? When the market had a big adjustment. Well, and the reason that it had a big adjustment is because lending standards were very, very loose. If you could walk and chew gum at the same time, you could buy a home. It was honestly, I wasn't in mortgage then, but it was pretty crazy. And so that has changed because it caused the market to fall apart. Right. If you're trying to zero in on that time and say, what if that happens again? There are all kinds of things in place now to keep that from happening again. You need to get rid of that kind of thought process.
And we've already come off of the highs from post-COVID prices.
Yes, we have. There was a little bit of an adjustment there because so many people were buying and driving those prices up.
And that line has passed. I mean, we're beyond that.
It has passed, and I think we're in a healthy area. It almost got to where it was a little bit unhealthy because those prices were going up so fast. Now, the people that bought then, you guys, they're pretty happy right now because they have more equity than they might have had that not occurred.
Or I guess if you bought right before the prices went up.
Yes,
because it seems like they went up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that owned before or even bought during that time typically is sitting pretty right now.
Yeah.
Talking about the value of homes, and let's just take the last 5 years. And this is in the United States as a whole, but just in 2020, and look at this graph, hopefully we can put it on the screen, but in 2020, the average, the median price was $329,000. Now this is in the United States. In October last year, 2024, that price was $419,200. So not quite $100,000, but just in a 5-year period. Now, let's bring it down to where we are right here. We are in zip code 77845 in College Station, Texas. So the median price today in our market in this zip code is $372,063. This same home is projected to appreciate over the next 5 years an average of 3.69% per year.
Yeah.
Okay. So that takes a home today that's $372,063. In 5 years, it will be worth $440,741.
Kind of hard to wrap your mind around that.
Yeah, it really is.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at the same time, if you bought the home, then you're making payments and you are lowering your principal balance.
Right.
Your actual equity in the home is more than that. So I think that looking at it on a national level and what happens is great, but I love to bring it down to the zip code. Wherever my buyer is looking, let's look at it in that zip code and say, okay, here's our price today. We know our price, but what is that going to look like in 5 years? Because we all need that encouragement that we're making a good financial decision.
Just gathering the data. It's just gathering more information to make an educated decision.
Yes, exactly. And this makes sense. Some people are going to say, well, what if I don't own the home? What if I'm only going to live here 5 years? We have that a lot with the university where they know they're going to be here 5 years, but what if they move in? And so I love to help them figure out, okay, what does that look like if you continue to rent? Because we pretty well know where they are going to be. And we'll talk about that in a minute because those rents increase.
Right.
Whereas if they go ahead and buy, lock in their price, right? That's not going to change in 5 years. And their principal and interest payment with a fixed rate loan is not going to change in 5 years either. So then what is that going to look like at the end of 5 years? We can show you that real quick. And I would say that's pretty much a no-brainer.
Right.
When you look at those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you sit down with people and do this.
I do. It's one of my favorite things to be able to do. Yeah. So let's talk about rents in our market. Obviously, there's a lot of rentals in the market, typical, I would say, for a community of our type in, Texas or in the United States. But rents in College Station as of March, right now, okay, the average rent in our market is $1,875. To me, the interesting thing is data shows that is a 6% increase year over year, okay? Whereas if you own the home, your principal and interest, you're going to get a fixed rate mortgage. That principal and interest is not going to change.
When you're talking with people about this, do you also talk about the taxes and insurance? Because it seems like those are the two variables that do change. And we're in an environment now where they're changing a lot. And so how do you account for that when you're visiting with people?
You know, I do talk about that, and we will give a very realistic idea of what taxes and insurance are going to be. If we don't have a property, then we're going to just look at probably a little higher end. We're going to estimate it on the high end, but just so they know what to expect for the whole monthly payment is super important. But insurance, we're going to be talking about that too. That's a pretty big subject because of the fact that if you have an older home, let's say 15 years old, you're going to have a different insurance rate than if you buy a brand new home. And for example, here we are in this Omega Builders home, brand new home, a Southern Point, and we're so glad that they're hosting us here. Claylee we work a lot together with families. The cool thing about it is that the roof is new, right? And that's one of the big costs with insurance. And so we're finding that the insurance premium for new homes is considerably less.
Really? I did not know that. Okay.
It's considerably less. Just because, think about it, you're not going to need to replace things. It's not going to
have the issues.
So that's kind of a big thing. Now, I don't try to project what taxes are going to do. You know, our state is planning on hopefully giving us even more of a break on our homesteads. And so I feel like that over time, we're going to be able to see our taxes at least stay pretty steady as they have for the past few years, if not potentially go down a little bit.
That would be amazing.
I don't like people to count on that though.
Right.
I like them to be comfortable enough. I don't think they should push themselves for like, we're going to be so stretched every month that if taxes go up, you know, $10, we're in trouble.
Right.
I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm going to make a case against that.
So when working with people, you do not look at the outer bounds of what they can afford. You keep it more conservative so that they have some built-in protection for unexpected expenses that come up, like taxes going up or insurance going up.
I will look at everything that somebody needs. And so if they want to know what a person can afford is really a personal thing, because what I can afford and what I feel comfortable with pushing myself on is different than what you do, right? Some people, it's just different. So I don't like to say, I can tell you what you qualify for. So I can say that per guidelines, here is what you qualify for. And I can give you your max number there. But I'm gonna leave it to you to decide what you can afford, what's in your budget, and what are you comfortable with? Do you wanna have money left over for some travel or date night every week? That's an important personal thing that I really encourage people to work through that.
Yeah, I mean, some people want to drive a new car every few years.
Yes.
I drive a 2007 Land Cruiser. It is paid for.
Right there.
Things like that make a huge difference.
It does, yeah.
Car payments.
So it's very personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. So talking about some of the tax benefits and then the issue of how you can personalize your space and have control over it.
I think those are huge, don't you? I mean, having your own personal space, you know, when I talk to people, like I always want to know, why is this a good time to buy? And a lot of them are, sometimes it has to do with animals. I have a dog and we don't have space for the dog to enjoy running in the yard, or they just really want to make it their own. They want to put their own paint on the wall and they want to do whatever they want to for that. And I think as people mature, that becomes more and more important, just making it your own. But then I guess the money part of that, on the tax benefits, a lot of people don't even think about it because a lot of first-time home buyers are not, itemizing on their tax returns. So if you were a first-time home buyer, you would have your mortgage payment and your property taxes deductible. Chances are that would put you in a different tax bracket and your taxes would be lower because of that. And I'm not a tax advisor, but
right. And you may not know the answer to this, but you mentioned that to make me think of this question. For people who are renting, can you take itemized deductions from rent the same way you can from a mortgage payment?
That's a great question, and I don't have the ansa.
Okay.
But that'll have to get a tax specialist on. I've never been asked that question, and so I wouldn't want to say.
Right.
But I do think that that's probably a tiny number relative to your mortgage payments and your tax payment. That's really going to put it over the edge.
Yeah.
for being able to itemize. Something that younger people tend to not think about that much is, what about the future?
Yeah.
And
Long-term future, like
long-term,
40 years, sure.
like, yes, what happens, in 40 years, like you said. And I feel like this is something that is really important. I looked this up, you guys. It's so compelling to me. Did you know that nearly half of all the assets that American families will depend on in their retirement, and this is not counting Social Security benefits, but nearly half of what they're going to count on is equity in their home?
Wow. And so talk about that a little bit. Like, how can you count on the equity in your home? What is that going to do for you when you're 70?
Okay.
Making some decisions.
Yeah.
Wait, how could you use that?
Yeah. So, well, let's just say that if you're 70, let's just assume that you've paid off your home. Maybe you haven't, which is fine, but let's just assume you have. So we'll say that you have $400,000. If you were to sell your home, you have $400,000 there. So, I work with people like this all the time. So the question they may have is, would we buy another home? Which you could, because typically they're going to be downsizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so their costs are going to be less. So you could buy another home. You could put 5% down and still have that $400,000, most of it sitting over here at the side. You could do something conservative with it where it does earn a return while it's kind of working for you that way. But you can take money out of that for your house payment. You could do that. Or a lot of people just move into assisted living, or maybe a smaller condo or townhome or garden home or something like that. And they may rent, there's a time when that's appropriate, but they could use that money. We'll call it kind of like a reverse mortgage, which I don't love that idea for a lot of people, but you could use it like that. So you sell your home, you set your money aside over here, and then you're just taking out of that fund to supplement, say, Social Security, or supplement other types of income you have. But imagine if you didn't have.
Right. I was just going to say, it gives you some options. It gives you options.
It does. And I just feel like that, it's always a good thing to look way down the road before, say, let's just say in your 20s or 30s, you have a plan, right? And I hope that owning a home becomes part of that. I think that a lot of people say in our nation, what if we become a society of renters? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you'll hear things like that, and it just gives me cold chills, because then what are you going to do? You don't have that equity because you never did pay your mortgage to yourself. You paid it to your...
I've always heard of that in terms of looking at countries that are much more socialized. And so there's a lot more governmental support. So that's something like that, a logical choice to make.
Or maybe the only choice.
Right.
Which is kind of sad. I feel like that we have choices here. When I'm talking sometimes to first-time home buyers, we didn't really kind of go here, but a lot of people are hesitant because they can't find the house they want. They've been watching HGTV too much, right?
Right.
And they think that the first house that they buy is going to be like their parents or like the house they grew up in.
Right.
A lot of times I will actually tell them, buy something, right? And I'm not saying just buy some old shack that's never going to appreciate or something like that. I mean, be smart and go with the advice and the guidance of your realtor, but buy something. Get your toe in the door. You're not going to stay in the home forever. Most people, first-time home buyers, probably don't even stay there 7 years.
And that's like the perfect type of home that people can turn around and rent out, lease out, and they can continue to build equity and have that other person make that mortgage payment for you.
Yes, absolutely. You could become a landlord.
Right.
For sure. But I just waiting for the perfect home, which is there one? Is there a perfect home? Okay. I didn't think so.
I went to Bill, they say, gosh, I wish I had thought of this. I wish I had thought of that.
Yes.
I remember thinking, I didn't think of where I would naturally go to find a light switch. And I didn't didn't read that through, if only. So anyway, there's
always brand new homes. I mean, there's not a perfect house, but my message is invest in something and start that money growing, because there's never a better time to think about your future, whether it's the more near future or when you're 70 or 80 or
alive. But just make a plan and stick to the plan for the future.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
It really does. So let's talk about some of the common concerns. I think this will give us an opportunity to really delve into the process and the steps. My assumption is that there are a lot of people who just can't even let themselves think about this a whole lot because of assumptions that they've made about their own financial situation. And so, Carrie, let's talk about these steps and some of these constraints that people assume will keep them out of the market forever, like college debt. I know that's a huge issue for people. A huge issue. So let's talk about this.
Yes, I agree. And I think that a lot of first-time homebuyers, they disqualify themselves.
Good point.
And they work themselves into this state of mind that I could never own a home.
Right.
I'm a numbers person, as you might guess, as a lender. And I think numbers speak. And the numbers are going to provide the clarity. And so you really have to start, and hopefully I can help. I would love to help, or your lender could help provide clarity there. And talk about the numbers. Let's talk about if it's student debt. Let's talk about that. There could be some options. I've helped people with options with that student debt to lower the monthly obligation. But as a lender, I'm going to see everything. There are no secrets from your lender. We see the credit report, and you guys, we're your best friend because number one, it's obviously totally confidential. What most people don't realize is that almost everybody has something in their credit that they wish wasn't there. Everybody does, I promise you that. But when we get in there and we see the details, we're able to say, what if we did this? Because we're just looking at all of the possibilities. What if we did this? And then that would free up this amount for you to feel more comfortable with a mortgage payment, right? It's one of my favorite things to do is to strategize and to look at the possibilities. Not all lenders are going to do this. They're just not, and I love to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about credit scores. How can help people with that.
Yes, and that is another barrier, as you barriers that so many people are thinking, well, I've got this, when I was in college, something happened and my rent payment didn't get paid, and I know I've got, bad score. We can help. So we provide to our clients a free service that it's an analytical tool that says, what actions could we do to raise our score from where it is and improve it to X. And it's very specific. It's looking at the items on your credit report. Let's say if you take this revolving credit account.
Would a credit card be an example of that?
Yes, right. Yes, exactly. And if you paid the balance down from where it is to here, then that could potentially raise your score X. And so it goes through all the items that are like score moving kind of actions that you could take. And it's very specific.
Yeah,
we are able to help. Sometimes we've helped people just by that simple analytical tool, and people that listen to advice, and we'll give them, it's like, here's your homework. You're going to go in here and you're going to do this. And then you're going to send us your new credit card statement that shows your balance is X. You're going to do this and this. And we're going to submit it for a rapid rescore. We can do this if somebody's in a position to buy now, but we can raise their score.
Let me interrupt you for a second. That brings me to a point I really want to make. This means, to me, what I hear you say is meet with you before you are out looking at houses and telling your realtor, I want to make an offer on this house. You need to meet with Carrie, especially if you think that you have issues with your credit or your debt. You need to meet early on so that you can work through these issues before you're out looking for houses.
Yeah, I think so, because that's backwards.
But I don't think people know to do that. I don't think they...
Yeah, I agree. I think they think that buying a home is much more about the process of going and looking at homes and seeing what it looks like and how beautiful it is and all of that. That's the really, really fun part. The work part is more getting ready and getting a plan in numbers.
Right. Okay, Carrie, one of the points I kind of wanted to make for people to understand is this kind of changes the outline of the course of events, like steps you take and the order you take them. So maybe for someone who is a first-time home buyer or someone who knows I've got a lot of student debt or I've got a bad, credit report, the first step is to get with a lender so that you can start working on these things before you're ready to buy your house or before you buy a house. And so if they're on board with doing that, what questions would they need to ask? Like, how do they know that they're working with a lender who is, one, capable of doing this? I do not believe every lender is going to be able to offer these tools, and then also willing to walk down this road with someone, because I think it's a bit of a process. Obviously, it's a bit of a process, and there may be lenders out there who just don't want to take the time to do this. So what would you recommend people ask the lender? How are they going to know that they're working with a Carrie Tennis and not someone who really just isn't interested, maybe?
Yeah, no, great question. I think that the people that I am fortunate to talk to, I think that once we have a 15, 20-minute conversation, my goal in talking with them is that they feel comfortable moving forward, regardless of where they are. Because I talk to people that have 20% down payment, they have steady jobs, and they're ready to go. Those are no-brainers, right? Everybody can do that quickly. But I talk with so many people, and I love talking with them that aren't ready and that don't know. I ask a lot of questions, and I probably ask more questions of them than they do of me, but it helps me understand where they're coming from and what their knowledge is about everything. And I would just say that if you have someone that you feel like is kind of rushing you through the process, like, what is this, what is this, what is this, it may not be a good fit for you. I think that lenders, it's a fit, honestly.
Right.
And if you have someone that is, again, just kind of rushing you and not kind of starting at the base, like, and there's nothing to base. I feel like people, if someone is getting ready to buy a home, they should start 9 months, easily 6 months out. And I'm talking about even pulling credit. And I advise this of my clients all the time, is because they may have Credit Karma, or they may have the Experian app where they think they know what their credit is. That is just a tiny indicator, really. And there could be some things that we could do to help them get in a better position. So I'm long-term.
So then one indicator for people would be, is this lender asking them questions? And what kind of questions is this lender asking? And then maybe for them to ask the lender, can you help me repair my credit?
Right.
Can you help me restructure this student loan debt? Is that something you could help me do?
Right.
Because that's, I guess, asking a very direct question. And depending on the answer they get would be an indicator of whether this is maybe or maybe not the right person.
So I think that could be like even just kind of almost a black and white, because some lenders may just say, look, when you get that done,
right?
When you get that done,
yes,
then go ahead and call me.
And then some people are back to square one. Well, I don't know how to fix that problem. That problem is never going to be fixed. And so I'm back to just renting forever. So what we're saying is, don't do that. Don't let that happen to you. And it starts with understanding the process, getting these questions answered, being willing to take a deep look at your own financial situation, because it's not going to go away on its own. And then find a lender early, not when you're ready. You're like, oh my gosh, we're going to spend Christmas in a new house. No, don't wait until then. Find your lender and ask, can you help me restructure my student loan debt? Can you help me fix my credit score? And then think about, well, what questions are they asking of me? Are they literally like filling out the form that they'll submit for a loan as we're meeting the first time? Or are they asking me questions about how much student debt do I have? How did I get in this situation? Have I thought about a plan for getting out before? And so it's very relational, or it can be relational.
It really is. A lot of times you're going to have a lender, I'll say over here, that might be just saying, what is your credit score? Or let's pull your credit. Number 2, how much money do you have? And let's understand. That's really all they want to know. What purchase price, of course, and that sort of thing. That's really all they want to know, because that's, in the end, that's what we have to know, right? But there's so much in between there.
That's well said.
And if we're not finding out, I'm finding out so much stuff. Why someone's buying, how long they plan on keeping the home, because that's going to inform me on the types of scenarios I present to them. It makes all the difference in the world.
Right.
And so it's really just going a deeper level. All lenders are not the same. And I'm not here to bash anybody, because everybody kind of, I guess, fills their role, right? I just choose to be on a different level, because that's what I love doing.
Yeah. Well, it's transformational for people. And so I think the takeaway for this part is, you want to make sure that don't make assumptions about your situation. And don't assume that you just know because of your personal lived experience. You need to get with someone who can really lay out the numbers for you.
That's Very
Right.
said.
Okay.
Very well said.
That's great. So, really to wrap this all up, it goes back to the wealth gap. And at the end of the day, when you're finished running your race, if you want to be better positioned, owning a home is the way to go.
A lot better position. Could
Yeah.
we say that?
Yeah.
I think we could. But I 100% agree. Let's look at some numbers, right?
Right. Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I feel like we could talk for another hour about this, but we can't.
Later.
So another time.
You know, what was really cool for me was I got to sit back and listen. I was the cameraman, but I got the opportunity to really soak it in. And I learned stuff today that I didn't even know. And
Great.
the points that Carrie was making about the equity that you build, the financial stability that you'll have later in life by having a home and that equity really hits home.
It does. And just with the news that I listen to, my heart goes out to people who feel hopeless. Like I can almost cry. And I think that like talking to Carrie about there's a path forward.
Yeah.
You've just got to find the person to talk to who can help you get on that path. And so that was my favorite part, was really laying out, finding that right lender and what kinds of questions to ask them and what you should be hearing from them.
When you talk to people like Carrie, you can see that they have a heart for helping people.
Yes.
And those are the people that we like to work with.
Absolutely.
So would love to be able to work with you as well. We've helped people just like you find the right place at the right time.
Right here.